I'm speaking with Tom Cunnington, who was a veteran from the Burma Thailand Railway and also a survivor of Japan. Tom, thank you very much for agreeing to do this interview. Could you tell us where you were born and the date, and maybe where you went to school for primary school and high school?
Well, I was born in South Fremantle. I was taken to England by my mother when I was only months old, because that was during the First World War, and Dad's already got away with the Australian Army. And we stayed in England until the war finished. I'd linked up with Dad, of course, there, and came back altogether, three of us, after the war, 1919, I think it was, to Bentley, where we were to Welshpool, where we were still living, at least where the family home was still there, when the Second World War came along.
Yes. And you were, when the Second World War started, you were already in the army,
I
were
was
you?
in the regular army. I'd not been in it long, few months, but as you can appreciate, in those days it was a job. The depression was tailing off, but the jobs were still scarce. And I did want the Navy. I fancied the Navy, but the Navy didn't fancy me.
Yeah.
And so I said, well, to hell with the Navy, I'll take the Army, which Dad didn't mind because he'd been in the Army and he was quite pleased. And the first thing I did when they started recruiting for the AIF was to put in a written application for a secondment.
And what was this comment to?
To the AIF,
Oh, right, yes.
to be seconded to the AIF.
Yes. And how did you end up in the heavy artillery?
Well, I was in the Coast Artillery,
Yeah.
because that was the batteries, you see, at Fremantle and Rottnest. And I went to Darwin in the Mobile Force, joined the Mobile Force as a reinforcement. And we called it the Mobile Force, but I think it was early days. Later on we got, there was quite a lot of that went on, task force.
Oh, yes.
Task force stuff.
Yes.
And I do think, in retrospect, that perhaps the powers that be in Australia were thinking in terms of building up a fund of instructors,
Yes.
getting a load of. This was the general impression I got when I applied the first time to get in the AIF or secondment. Mr. O'Hare, Lieutenant O'Hare, who was the OC at Fremantle Battery at that time, he read it while I stood to attention in front of him,
Oh.
and just let it fell where it may, you see.
Yes.
And he said, that's the chance you've got. He said, you're going to have work done to do as an instructor. So I got that, from that moment I got the impression that's what we were all really there about. And I think there's quite a lot of the chaps that got in the AIF did get in as always some rank. And for instance, one of the sergeants in Darwin with me, his name I can't recall at the moment, hell of a nice chap. When I got back from the war, I went into a convalescent place over at Applecross, and the CO of that was my old mate, the captain there.
Yes.
See?
Now, you took drop in rank, didn't you?
Well, I was a sergeant.
Yes.
I was offered the warrant to take the battery sergeant major's job.
Uh-huh.
The W.W. Reeves, Bert Reeves was BS7. He called me into his office and he told me that he wanted to nominate me as his successor.
Oh.
He'd been asked to nominate. And I asked him why he picked me when I was, with one exception, I was the youngest sergeant in the unit. The youngest in time, not in age, but the youngest as a sergeant. And he said that I got more work out of the blokes with less trouble than the others. So that's what he said. Whether he's just being nice to me or not, I don't know. But anyway, I refused it.
Yes.
Silly, but that's the way you are, isn't it? And so I went off to Darwin eventually and thought there might be something doing up there. They wanted a couple of, some few reinforcements, and I went up with a group of 10, I think. And after I eventually got to be sergeant, a gun sergeant, and incidentally, I was being a mobile force. It was a mixture. I started off in a mortar platoon, and then got into the field artillery section, and became a gun sergeant, and then this opportunity came. There was a unit in the AIF in Darwin at that time passing through.
Yes.
It had room for two battalion gunners.
Yes.
So my mate and I, my mate was a bombardier, we both did the same. We dropped our rank and went in.
Right. And from when did you leave Darwin to go to Timor?
About before the rumbles finished at Pearl Harbor.
Yes.
Because they dragged us out of the theatre, out of the pictures at 9 o'clock at night to go on the boat.
So December 1941.
December the 8th,
yeah. Yeah. And it was about the 23rd of February 1942 when capitulation took place on Timor, wasn't it? Yeah. It is said in Les Poitevin says in his book that 18,000 Japs invaded and there were about 4,000, mainly Aussies, on the island.
Well, that's right.
Yeah. Almost no British and some Dutch.
I never saw a British soldier there.
No. Colonial Dutch?
There were... I did see a rather comical incident during action. We were in an area that was low hills and flat swampy land between them. And we heard this sharp voice and marching feet, and we lay doggo in the low ground and watched the road, and marching past was the colonel, the Dutch colonel, out in front, and behind us 4 of his troops carrying his big bed.
Yes. Says something.
That's all we saw of the Dutch army.
Yes. Now, the following capitulation, you were moved to Java?
Not for some months.
Oh.
Taken prisoner on the 23rd of February and left Timor on the 26th of the 7th, 5 months.
5 months, yeah.
Yeah.
Do you remember the names of any of the doctors who were on Timor when you were there?
No, I don't actually.
If I was to suggest some names, could it help?
It might.
Dr. Dunkley? I'll use the term doctor instead of their rank. Poitevin, Les Poitevin.
Well, I know Poitevin by name anyway.
Yes, yeah. And Gillies?
Dr. Gillies, I knew him up and down.
Yeah, now he was your unit's medical officer, wasn't he?
I've got an idea he might have been, yes.
Yes. Yeah. Now, we've moved back over to Java now, and did you ever have contact with the 2nd, 3rd machine gunners and the 2nd pioneers over there? No. How is it that you were moved to Singapore then? Why were you moved to Singapore from Java?
Oh, I see what you mean. As I understood it, they wanted to question the West Australians mainly, the Japanese did, regarding the feasibility of making seaborne landings on the coast along what we call the Scarborough, along that area.
Yes.
And they got the West Australians. And there just happened to be a few of us there because we'd been in the permanent army in the Fremantle barracks and that together, some of us. And our CO was not a West Australian. When I say the CO, I mean the senior officer in the group of us going on the ship. He was from the eastern states. But he knew nothing, and of course we knew correspondingly less.
Yeah.
So the Japs gave us up as it. But when we got to Java, the Kempei Thai had left and gone to Singapore.
Yes.
So after a bit of a hanging around for a short time in Java, left Timor, arrived Java the 8th, left Java the 14th of the 9th.
Yes.
About 6 weeks.
And so they didn't bring the Kempei didn't come to you. They took the West Australians to the Kempei.
Only took a few of us over, then take us all.
Yes.
I think it was a bit of a blue duck as far as I think they realised it was they were getting nothing.
Yes.
And wouldn't get anything.
Now, while you're in Singapore, before you went up the line, did you do any other military training at all?
Only that little bit that we mentioned before, the
hygiene training course.
The training for hygiene officers.
How long was the course?
Only a couple of weeks,
Yes.
just a crash course.
Yes.
Things were a bit desperate. There were all those thousands of men, and they were almost devoid of hygiene workers.
Yes.
And so we, those of us that volunteered, were put through this short course, and we did it, and they gave us a Red Cross armband, and that gave us freedom of movement from camp to camp within the camp.
Yes.
All in sections, and you weren't allowed to move from one to the other without going on a special, what they used to call a ferry. I think it was a ferry. That was simply an organised group that went at a certain time.
Yes.
Under sort of control, but with a Red Cross armband you could move day and night, which was good. It had to have that, otherwise you couldn't have done anything.
Now, I know that you became part of D-Force or Don Force and moved up to Thailand, and it's well documented that people moved up. About 30 POWs crammed into one of these riser trucks, 18x7. But when you got up to Thailand and were detrained, for want of a better word, at Ban Pong, where did you move to after that?
As far as I remember, we went from Ban Pong right on up the line.
Yes.
And I think we did do some of it by truck. I don't recall doing any by train.
Oh.
There was no train anyway up the line. We could only go as far as Canberra, I suppose, anyway.
Yes.
But we did get to Kinsoyok, and I think we must have walked that. I had a bit of a lapse of memory there, but I don't see how else we could have done it.
Would you be able to read from your diary there or notes there the time that you were, say, at Canberra and Tarsau, Ringtin, until you got to your first major stop at Auntie?
No, it doesn't give out. All I've got is the taken prisoner, left Timor, arrived Java, left Java. That's all I've done is get the movement dates, movement and arrival.
Yes. Do you remember anything of Kinsaok? Was it a big camp?
It was a fairly large camp, and it was a sort of a junction depot.
Oh.
It became a kind of head of line at one stage. I had to go down there from one of the camps with a lot of very sick and get them. I went down by boat, barge with them, and they had to be shipped off to Chongkai, one of those down on the lower down.
Yes.
And that's when I became the only one-man drover. I was asked if I would take back a bunch of cattle to distribute. And I wasn't on my own at this stage. There were others with me, but they were, I think they were, must have been Dutchess. I don't know what they were. But anyway, we got about half a day away with these cattle, and they got scared, something upset them, and they went bush. Well, that's one thing I wasn't going to do in that bush, get myself lost in there. I had black panthers and that around, so we let them go, bugger.
Oh.
And I did a lot of arm waving and tried out bits of Japanese and bits of English to tell them that they'd all gone very,
Oh.
Well, they couldn't do anything about it. As far as getting them back, they couldn't anyway. They accepted it, and I was moved on. Fed and housed and moved on. Yeah.
When you were at Auntie, I understand you were working with another fellow who was required to do medical work, Charlie Demlay.
Charlie Demlay, yes. Yes, he was a chemist, I think. He worked for ICI, is it? International Chemical Industry. In Victoria somewhere.
Yes.
I'm not quite sure what he did, but he was no doctor anyway, and he knew nothing more about medicine than I did.
Yes.
And we were lumbered. We got there in Auntie. They detached a group off to open up the Auntie camp. Two doctors. Charlie and I were the doctors.
Yeah.
We didn't have a bloody clue.
And when you'd moved from Kinsaok up to Auntie, I believe you went through Hindado and Rintin. Did you have some comments about the conditions in Rintin camp?
Rintin, yes. It smelled as if everybody was dead for miles around there. Putrid. We had difficulty getting to sleep that night, and we'd walked all day. That gives you some idea. You get pretty browned off and put up with most things under those conditions. It was really putrid.
Yeah. And when you were Dr. Cunnington at Auntie camp, what can you recall the types of things that you were treating?
Primarily dysentery. Dysentery was rife, of course, largely because of the unhygienic conditions we were living under. some of the Dutch, perhaps I shouldn't say this, but some of the Dutch were extremely unhygienic in their habits.
Oh,
I've seen them, for instance, you know that they don't use toilet paper, they wash themselves.
yes.
Well, they'd be using their Dixie head, hold the water,
Yeah,
wash their bud,
yes,
that sort of thing.
yes.
Well, that's something no Australia would have done.
Right.
And we did have that and malaria.
Did you have any tropical ulcers?
Oh, yes.
How did you treat them?
Well, the doctors used to scrape them out and gouge them out.
But when you were the doctor, what did you advise?
Oh, well, we didn't know anything about it. Actually, we were only doctors long enough to realise we couldn't do the job, and that's when we organised. I don't know how this was done, but I figure that one of us must have made the move and got permission to send the worst of our sick up to Bungan.
Yes.
And then I suppose they got so many of us, they felt that we should pitch in and help to nurse them. So I went up there and I noticed on that, I went up and came back to Ponty, then I went back again. So I guess the second time I went back, I must have signed on and they kept me there on the street.
Yes.
I stayed with them then through till till the line finished, I think.
Now, I think you told me that on one occasion you and 3 others formed a stretcher bearer team to carry a guy up to Nicky where he had to be operated on. Just tell us how hard it is, how far you actually carried him and how hard it is.
Well, I don't know how far, it just seemed a hell of a long way.
Oh,
He was a big man, probably the biggest Dutchman out of Holland, and he was a submariner. So he had to be got up there. We were set up with a Jap card. And we got him up there. We got rid of him. That's the correct term. And eventually turned around and walked back.
yes.
Now, the Jap guard got even more tired of the walking than we did. And he had nothing to carry except his rifle, because he gave one of us his rifle to carry on the way back.
Yes. Yeah.
It rings a bell, doesn't it?
Yes. Now, when the line was finished in October 1943, I guess you were moved back down south. Did you come down by train?
Yes.
And do you have any particular recollections of maybe frightening aspects of the return journey? Or?
One or two of the bridges, we knew how they were built. And when you see a 3-tier bridge built of green bush timber, holes drilled through it to take bolts that are not bolted through, they're belted through with a hammer and then bent over, like you bend a nail. And that's what was holding them.
Yes.
And we didn't like the idea. We could feel the thing. We thought we could anyway.
Yes.
But we went round that viaduct, whatever they call it, around the face of the cliff.
Wapo Viaduct.
Wombo, yeah.
Oh.
And we stood in the door of his rice truck and looked straight down the forest of timber down to the sea,
Yes.
to the river rather.
Yes.
And in actual fact, I suppose, all things considered, apart from the treatment of the people who did the work, I'd say the Japanese did a damn good job of that. Because I think both the English and I think the German, I'm not sure, I think it was the German, had done surveys of that, and they both said it wasn't
It couldn't be done.
couldn't be done.
Oh.
Yeah.
Yes.
But they did it within the time. We didn't expect they would work us through the monsoon, but they did.
Oh.
We'd worked day and night, we hardly saw the bloody camp. But the cost was heavy.
Yes. Did you ever do hammer and tack? Did you ever do any of the hammer and tack work, or were you?
You mean me drilling?
Yes.
No, I worked a little bit on the big one, the big
The thread.
conue cutting, is it?
Yes.
I worked. I remember being on that because there was a Korean guard. He set up halfway up the bank and was throwing pebbles at us one day.
Yes.
And that's all I remember of that. But I think at about that time I was kept back in camp as a medic.
Yes.
I don't know whether I actually did much work on that. I think I was probably out there as a medic anyway.
Yes.
I hadn't quite got used to the idea of being a medic.
Now, you came down the line by train, and I think you mentioned that you felt that you'd gone to a camp at Non Pladuk. And then from that Non Pladuk you'd gone by train down into
Yes.
back to Singapore.
Yeah, it would be non-Pladuk, I guess, that camp. I wouldn't like to bet money on it, but it was a fairly big junction.
There were lots of workshops there.
Yeah, and I'd probably been at there.
Yeah.
Because there we caught the train direct back to Singapore.
Yes.
When one came along, it was really nice.
Was it a more comfortable return journey than the journey up, or was it no different?
I don't think so. I think our bones were sticking out more.
Yes, yeah, I'm sure. Now, when you were chosen to go to Japan, do you recall anything of the journey up there? The name of the vessel you were on?
Yes,
The departure date, how long it took?
I remember the name of the vessel very well because it was named after one of the Three Musketeers. Pardon me, my voice is cracked. It was named after the youngest of the Three Musketeers, Aramis.
I'll just stop. And I think, Tom, you just mentioned the name of the vessel that you got to Japan.
Aramis.
Was it a comfortable vessel?
Well, not where we were. We were all bunked into a hold, sleeping on top of one another sort of thing. But there were a lot of women on, Japanese civilian people. And I remember that the squads of them used to come down the gangway or the ladder stairs and survey us in all our glory down there in a heap during the day. But we were very conscious of the fact that we were below water level, and torpedoes had a bad habit of going into ships, and we didn't have any trouble. We had an escort. There was about 4 ships, I think, all told. There was an oil tanker. There was a well-loaded cargo ship, and there was a small ship like a, I don't know whether a destroyer or a sloop or something. A smallish warship anyway.
Yeah.
And we went, sneaked up the Chinese coast, and got to Japan without incident. And we arrived at Moji. Had to go in through the inland sea to get to it. And I think they had an air raid the night we were there.
Yes.
We were all anxious to get up and see the fireworks and the Japanese screaming their heads off. Everybody wanted to go banjo, get to the toilet.
Yeah. There, what camps were you in Japan?
Just the one, Omuta.
And what was your employment? Were you was that did they do mine work or
Coal mine. It was a mining camp. When I got to Japan, I went to Ian Duncan and I said, look, Doctor, I'm sick and tired of seeing my mates dying. I said, I'd like a change from being a medic. So can you get somebody else to do the job? So he said, oh, well, he said, if I can find someone, I will let you know. Well, whether he's right or not, I don't know, because next day he said, they can't get anybody. The blokes like you, they know you, which of course was important to know and depend on someone.
Yes.
And so I stayed on that. And when did I get off it? I did about half the time I was in Japan as a medic and half working. I was the second half working, that's right. I was 1,500 feet underground when the war finished.
Oh.
So I was working on the line. Yeah, in fact, come to think of it, I was in charge of a gang of 100-odd men, I think. They made me a Shotai 2, which is Japanese equivalent of a sergeant.
Yes.
And I had this 31, there was 31 group. They were all sort of odds and sods and sick and convalescents for us, light workers. And yeah, Sanjurich.
Now, you actually went down the mines.
Oh yes.
Okay. You must have been working side by side with Japanese occasionally.
Well, we worked under the Japs. We always had
Yes.
a Jap watching us.
Yes. But did they give you tuition on how to do the drilling? And
Well, we didn't do the drilling.
No.
I didn't anyway. I was mostly concerned with what we call here in the mines bogging, shifting the rubble, and it was a boring job, but I didn't mind it so much down below because you're away from the Japs largely.
Yes.
And if you were lucky enough to have a reasonably good bloke in charge of your little gang, you're right. If you were unlucky enough to have a bad one, and we did at one stage, we had one bloke that was known as, what the hell was he called? He was a man bugger anyway. And then somebody told him that I was a doctor, and he suddenly remembered he had a shoulder muscle that was giving him trouble and wouldn't know if I could do something for it. So, oh, no trouble with it. It eased him and made him feel good. So from then on, I was his young brother.
Yes.
He used to bring in bits of tucker for me.
When you were still working as a medic up there, did they do operations or
Yes.
you know that?
Yeah, we did a lot of
Did you have any experience with those?
I did. I worked with Dr. Oh, the American doctor was a good surgeon. I didn't like him as a person. He was the reason I got out of the hospital. He called me a name which I didn't like.
What was his background? Was he from the Houston or?
No, I think he was an army doctor.
So he was captured somewhere else, like the Philippines or something like that?
I think so. Yeah. I'm not certain, but I think he was an army doctor.
Yeah.
And there were a couple of others that didn't figure so. I saw the Dutch doctor. The doctor in charge of the hospital was a Jap, but he spoke German and spoke to the Dutch of that in German. He spoke pretty good English too.
Now, when the bomb was dropped, were you aware of any big incident? Were you?
No, not at the time.
No.
Not at the time. The day they dropped the one on Nagasaki, which was just across there, probably 30 odd miles away, I don't know, we saw this plume of smoke, wood dust. And the air seemed to be full of Japanese fighter planes all buzzing around like angry bloody bees, like they didn't know where to go, what they wanted to do. And somebody did say next day that they'd wiped out Nagasaki with a bomb the size of a cricket ball. That's all we knew. And then we got a bit more news, and when we went into Nagasaki to leave, we went through the area where the bomb dropped, and it was an eye opener.
Now, how long did it take after the war, after the Japs capitulated, for you to get back to Australia?
It took me about 2 months to get home. I was about a month in Japan before I could get out of Japan. I lived on an aircraft carrier, the SS Augusta, right? They go USS Augusta. And I changed over at Okinawa to a small landing craft. And at Manila, we were taken out about 30 miles from the town to a big specially built camp, very good, all electric light in the tents and wooden floors built in, and it was a good camp, well done. And food and an issue of beer every day and all the things, tobacco, smokes, cigars, all the things we hadn't had, did it? And we had visits from Gracie Fields and people like that singing. Yes, it all seemed to go pretty well.
When did you get back to Perth?
I got back to Perth on the 15th of August, I think. 15th of August. That's when the war finished, wasn't it?
Yes.
Well, about 2 months after that.
Yeah, October. Now, I just noticed on your discharge certificate, it's some while before you actually took your discharge.
Oh, a couple of years.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I was going to stay in this regular army. But when I couldn't even get a sniff of one bloody stripe, I said, well, I'm not going to start at the war again. I'm not at my age, am I? So I left.
And I see this discharge certificate seems to have been signed by Lieutenant Middleton, and I think that might be Blue Middleton, who died in Burma last year. Yeah. And now, post-war, rehabilitation training?
So I did a 2-year course at the with rehab in health inspection and meat inspection.
Yes.
And I didn't particularly like it, I didn't particularly want it, but it was the only thing going. And I felt that the little bit of insight I'd had as a doctoroo on the railway, that I would probably already had a start.
Yes. Well, it'd be helpful.
Yes.
And I think you had some interesting overseas postings during your role as a as a health inspector?
Oh, I went to New Guinea. I was 7 years up there. Yeah, for the administration up there.
Yes.
I did apply to the World Health Organization, but they wanted to send me to some godforsaken place that has they're actually called volcanoes.
Yes.
I said there's enough of those in New Guinea. I wasn't interested.
Yeah.